in the next question, we are seeing that a pair of architects in Britain who say that, this is an interesting term, say, pair. Now let's before we get into the question, I want to share a quick logic with you. Like for example, if you say words like scissors, jeans, trousers, binoculars, they typically act as plural. But the moment you add, let's say, a pair of scissors, then this acts as singular. Now this is typically what we take. But if you look at this question, and that's why it's so interesting. It says a pair of architects in Britain. Ideally, a pair should be taken as singular. But the verb here is plural, which means they have taken the pair also to be plural. And logically it kind of makes sense, because if you say a pair of architects, a pair means two, and two is plural. So that's why that makes sense. So, but never make the mistake just because you see the word pair, don't take it by default as singular. Let's go ahead to the question. It says a pair of architects in Britain who say that giant arches, bridges and walls made of artificial bone could be easier to design and build than conventional structures, and already designed a number of structures including a bridge for showing how their idea would work. So basically talking about the pair of architects who are saying that giant arches, bridges and walls made of artificial bone could be easier to design and build, and they've already designed some number of structures including some bridge to show their idea of work. So that's typically the idea. And it says that build here and showing here are not parallel. So these are non-parallel elements. So these are not parallel. Since it is not parallel, I'm going to eliminate A. Build, then conventional structures. Design and build, then conventional structures. And they have already designed a number of structures which includes a bridge to show. Number of structures including a bridge. So unnecessary use of which here. You already are aware that you are referring to the structure, so this which won't come because there's only one noun, so that kind of eliminates it. A pair of architects in Britain who say that giant arches, bridges and walls made of artificial bone could be easier to design and build than conventional structures have already. Now this have is referring back to the pair of architects, and this is correct. Have already designed a number of statues including a bridge to show. Now if you see show and build are parallel, and therefore this has to be the right answer. Let's look at the other two options. Design and also to build. This also is unnecessary. So this is worded. So that's gone. Design and to build. It doesn't to design and to build. So if you say 2x and 2y, it's better. The better version would be 2x and y. So this is always preferable over the first one. So E is also eliminated. And the other problem is it says shows, and you are referring to the point of plural. So this is singular. So that's why E is eliminated, and therefore the answer is C. I hope this is clear. Very nice question where we check two things. One, the pair, we took it as plural, number one, and match the plural with the verb here. So it should be show. That's number one. Number two, we also checked structures, where we say that this which won't come because you already have you're already referring to a single element in the plural form, so that won't work. And the other thing we did here was to see the parallelism of elements and the point that what are the architects doing. So they have already designed a number of structures including a bridge to show. So build and show, and therefore the answer is C. Slightly complex question, but hopefully this explanation would have given you an understanding of how to touch on these questions. Let's go to the next one. Now it says often incorrectly referred to as a tidal wave. A tidal wave. So this is singular. A tsunami, a seismic wave that can reach up to 150 miles per hour in speed and 200 feet high. Up to 150 miles, reach up to 150 miles per hour in speed and 200. It seems that the 150 miles per hour is referring to both speed and height. So it seems in the first question 150 miles per hour is referring to speed plus the height, which is not the intent. So this logic is wrong, so A is gone. Same is the problem if you say up to 150 miles per hour in speed and heights of up to 200 feet. So it should be speeds of up to 150 miles per hour and 200 feet high. So then it's very clear that the speeds of up to 150 miles per hour and 200 feet high. So there are two separate things. So this is a logic of X and Y, where X is independent and Y is independent. So this looks to be okay. But the problem is here, if you say R caused, what are caused? The tidal wave or a tsunami. So this has to be singular and this is plural in this case, which makes it wrong. Speeds of up to 150 miles per hour, I'm just going to look at these two together. Speeds of up to 150 miles per hour and as high as 200 feet are same problem. This is plural, so this is gone. So the right answer has to be D. Speeds of up to 150 miles per hour and heights. So speeds parallel with heights up to 150 miles up to 200 feet is singular, referring to tsunami, and therefore it is the right answer. I hope this was clear to you. Not a very difficult question, but the only thing you needed to understand was how did we eliminate option A and B, wherein we check that the point of placing the right modifier in front of the right areas to modify is extremely crucial, and therefore the answer is D. I hope this is clear. Let's go on to the next one. Now it says the majority of the professors as college as well as the graduate students seems to oppose the new campus private policy. Now this is X as well as Y, and the concept tells us that the moment we have as well as, we refer to the first noun. So the first noun becomes your subject. So whatever is the first noun, in this case as well as the majority of the professors as well as graduate students. So this is X and this is Y, and we are referring to X, so we are referring to majority. Now majority of the professors at the college, majority is a collective noun and collective nouns are singular, therefore majority will act as singular. So seems is correct in this case because you are referring to majority. The majority of the professors at the college as well as the graduate students seems to oppose the new campus private policy. So seems to oppose looks to be absolutely right. Seems to be opposed against. Now seems is present tense and this is past, so that's the mismatch. So B is gone. Seem is gone. Seem is gone because you are looking for singular verb, so this has to be singular verb seems. This option seems to be opposed to. Again, this is present, this is past, so this option has a past present mismatch, and because of the past present mismatch you will also eliminate this, so this is gone. The answer has to be A, that seems to oppose. Simple question, but an important concept to understand here was, one, you needed to look at the structure, and two, figured out that majority is not used as a plural subject, it's used as a singular subject because it's acting like a collective noun. I hope this is clear. Let's go on to the next one. Now it says that while for years several scientists attempted but could not prove that so-called planet X was a 10th planet in our solar system, later scientists convincingly disproved the possibility. Now, while for years several scientists attempted, so the logic is whenever using the word attempted, it has to be followed by a to. So you attempt to do something. For example, if you say ISRO recently unveiled its PSLV rocket in an attempt to launch satellites. Let's say if this is the question. Now, if you look at this question, you'll realize that ISRO recently unveiled its PSLV rocket in an attempt to. So whenever you're looking at the word attempt, it has to be followed by a to. So attempted but could not. Attempted what? So this is unclear. So that's gone. Attempted but were unable. So it doesn't have a to here. Attempted to prove. So this is good option to check. Having attempted, while for years several scientists having attempted to prove could not prove. Okay, so this we can look at it. While for years several scientists attempted to do what? That's unknown, but could not prove. Okay, so attempted to but could not prove. So this unknown is answered in the previous next part. So this is kind of answered in the next part. So we can also look at this option. Now between C, D and E, since all of them have an attempted to, I'll have to drill down into the structure. It says, while for years several scientists attempted to prove but could not prove. Attempted to prove but could not prove in the next line. So this is worded, and since this is worded, I will eliminate this. While for years several scientists having attempted, this having attempted is a past present mismatch. It is called a past present. Having is in present, attempted is in past, so that will go. So the only option would be attempted to but could not prove. So they tried doing it but they could not prove it. So this is in past, that's in present, and that's parallel, because if you remember, you go back to that concept of parallelism where we said that a past verb can be parallel to a present verb if the context is clear. So in terms of the context, here past and present are parallel. So with this, the answer becomes E, that while for years several scientists attempted to but could not prove the so-called Planet X. I hope this is clear. Let's go to the next one. Now it says, when housing prices climb too quickly, the Federal Reserve often responds. So who responds? The Federal Reserve responds. So this is singular. Response is also singular, so that's correct. By raising the key interest rate, which has the curious effect of actually lowering housing prices instead of raising them. Now, very, very interesting is this which. Ideally the which should refer to rate. So is the rate having the curious effect of actually lowering housing prices instead of raising them? So the rate can't reduce the rate. So the point to understand here is, when housing prices climb too quickly, the Federal Reserve often responds by raising the interest rate. Which, so this which is referring to the interest rate, has the curious effect of actually lowering housing prices. So here it seems that the rate reduces housing prices, which is not correct. So this whole logic is not correct. The point to understand is what actually creates this whole effect is this action done by the Federal Reserve and not the interest rate. So interest rate is the part of the action. So all options which have a which means which are referring to the interest rates, will automatically be eliminated. Let's look at the other two options. Now it says, when housing prices climb too quickly, the Federal Reserve often responds by raising the key interest rate, an action that has the curious effect of actually lowering housing prices rather than raising them instead of raise them. So again, the point to understand is lowering will not be parallel to raise. So these two elements are not parallel. Therefore, E is gone and C has to be the answer. The point here to understand was that the which is not referring to interest rates, because interest rates will not decrease the housing price. It is the whole action through interest rates taken by Federal Reserve which is doing that. So an action which has the curious effect of actually lowering, so that's your verb, and rather than raising, so that's also parallel. So I'm just going to quickly rub this. So the point was lowering and raising was the point to understand, and since they are parallel, therefore B is the right answer. I hope this was clear to you. Let's go to the next question. It says, we now have wireless computer networks, direct broadcast satellite television, digital wireless cable television networks, global telephone service, and global GPS that can pinpoint. So you're referring to all this: element 1, element 2, element 3, 4 and 5 that can pinpoint an individual's location to a few inches. So the location to a few inches is absolutely right. So this could be an answer that can pinpoint an individual's location in a few inches. So in a few inches makes it wrong. So you point to an inch, you don't point in an inch. Which, okay. So the other three options have the point of a which. So basically what we need to compare here is the difference between which and that. So which will precede by a comma. So you cannot have a which doesn't have a, that will have no comma. Secondly, the second difference is which is a non-essential information, and this we've covered in the concepts as well. It is non-essential and that is essential. So now just from this to understanding, the point is very clear that all these 5 elements will help you to pinpoint the location, which means you're referring to an information which is absolutely essential. So all options with C, D and E will all be eliminated at one go, and therefore the answer is option A, that you can pinpoint an individual's location to a few inches, and B is wrong because it is not in a few inches. I hope that's clear. Let's go to the next one. So the last question in this set of practice questions is a slightly difficult one. Let's look at the question. It says, unlike birds which are highly sensitive to atmospheric pressure, people have found that paragliding require, what require? Paragliding. Paragliding is singular, require is plural, so that's wrong. The use of a variometer since detecting thermal currents are impossible. So what is impossible? The detecting. So this is singular and this is plural, again the mismatch, which means I'm going to look at two things where this mismatch is solved. That paragliding requires, so that's gone. Unlike birds which are highly sensitive to atmospheric pressure, people have found the use of variometer crucial for paragliding since it is impossible to detect thermal currents. Since it is impossible to detect thermal currents using normal motion sensitivity. Have found the use of variometer crucial for gliding since it is impossible to detect thermal currents using normal human motion sensitivity. The problem here is it says that unlike birds which are highly sensitive, people have found the use. It seems that people have found the use, which is not correct. People have found the point of paragliding. So that point is wrong. That paragliding requires, so this is solved. The use of variometer, so this is clear. So when you say paragliding, so paragliding uses variometer. Since detecting thermal currents are impossible using normal human motion sensitivity. Let's park this for now. Let's look at C. Have found paragliding to require the use of a variometer due to the fact. So this due to the fact is very worded. So that's gone. So this can't be the answer. That paragliding requires the use of variometer since detected thermal currents. The thermal currents have not been detected yet. You're still detecting it. So it is not detected yet. So that's gone. So by default the answer has to be C, where you say that paragliding requires the use of variometer since detecting thermal currents are impossible. So currents are impossible using normal human motion sensitivity, and this has to be the right answer. I hope this is clear. I request you to go through the question maybe one more time to understand, because this question required two things. One, the point to understand subject and verb, and the other to understand the structure of how to apply them in a complex argument. That brings us to the end of this additional practice question session. I hope you have learned an ample amount of what we have studied in the concept part and how do we apply it in actual questions. Take these two exercises of subject, verb and parallelism as an important point to practice for more questions as in when you encounter in your exams. Please remember that the concept that we have done plus the questions that we have solved will help you to create a strong base of your grammar, but practicing is an important function which you'll have to continuously do as if you want to increase your score in sentence correction. Thank you so much for your time and for your viewership in this lecture. Thank you so much.